Hello, ghouls and ghosts, and welcome back to the Scary Story Corner, where I, your host, Sweethart, will read scary stories for your enjoyment. Now, please, find your seats, get comfortable, and try not to get too scared. Have you ever heard of an old PC game called The Theater? Yeah, I didn't think so. Probably because many people say it doesn't even exist. You see, The Theater is an old computer game released around the same time as Doom. Today, if you ever find it, it's only available on a crappy bootleg CD-ROMs, which, more often than not, don't even actually contain the game. The actual legitimate copies that they say were released back in the day feature a blank cover with nothing but the sprite of what has since been named as the Ticket Taker. He is simply a poorly drawn, pixelated, bald man with large red lips wearing a red vest over a white shirt and black pants. He is completely emotionless, though some say that if you smash the disc, his face is shown as angry the next time you look at the cover. But this is just dismissed as an urban myth. What is particular about the theater, though, is that there is no developer name on this jewel case, nor a game description on the back. It is simply the Ticket Taker on a white backdrop on both sides. The game was initially known for its inability to install correctly. The installation process immediately locks up the computer when the user reaches the licensing agreement. Also strange about the licensing agreement for the theater is that whenever the development studio is supposed to be named, the text is simply blank. Anyways, most people who have claimed to have owned the original CD say that they figured out how to install the game by simply rebooting their computer on the licensing agreement with the disc still inside. Then, they are prompted to press the agree on startup. Then, they continue with the installation. The game then starts up without any introduction besides the main menu that is simply the sprite of a movie theater's exterior on an empty street. The title fades in, and then 3 menu buttons: New Game, Load, Options. Selecting Options immediately crashes the game to the desktop. Load is said to have no function at all. Even if you do have a saved game, nothing happens when you press it. Thus, New Game is the only working menu option. Once it is selected, you are in the first-person mode. You are standing in an empty movie theater lobby, with the exception of the ticket taker standing in front of a dark hallway, which is one can only assume leads to the theaters themselves. There's nothing to it but look at the poorly drawn, mostly illegible movie posters, or approach the ticket taker. Once the player moves towards the ticket taker, a very low quality sound clip plays saying, "Thank you, please enjoy the movie," along with a speech box saying the same thing. You then walk into the hallway and the screen fades to black, and you're back in the empty lobby, and you're doing the exact same thing over and over again. While this may sound like a really horrible game, a number of peculiar things occur as you continue to play it. The number of times that you have to continue into the hall after giving your ticket to the ticket taker before the strange event happens is unknown. Most state that it is completely random and could take anywhere from the first playthrough to the 400th. What happens though deeply disturbs some players. The first occurrence is when the player fades back in after walking into the hallway. This time, they will notice the ticket taker is completely absent. The player then, without any other options, decides to walk into the dark hallway. The sound clip and text box mentioned previously still play in the absence of the ticket taker, but when the player walks into the hallways, the screen does not fade out. It goes pitch black as they walk deeper into the hall. But the player's footsteps sound clip is still playing as though they continue to push the up button on their keyboard. Those claiming to have played the original game or to have felt extremely uncomfortable walking down the hallway, anticipating the whole way something horrible happening. Well, eventually, the player is unable to move forward. There's nothing for a few moments before a strange sprite that is described as the ticket taker, but with a swirl on its face appears and stands before the player. The original players of the game say their bodies immediately froze up and their stomachs churned when they saw the sprite, which has been appropriately named as Swirly Head Man. Nothing happens as the Swirly Head Man stands before them. Then suddenly, piercing screech plays as the game glitches out. This lasts for a few minutes, with the screeching being continuous. Then the player is abruptly returned to the lobby, all the sounds and graphics being as they should. The game continues normally for a couple of minutes of cycles of entering the hallway, with a couple of the original players claiming that the swirly head man would briefly appear and disappear in the corner of the screen as a brisk yelp sound plays. Then, at some point after meeting the swirly head man, the player sees the ticket taker pacing back and forth. Though there is no walking animation, the sprite's limbs are completely static, so he just hops up and down slightly as a substitute, with his eyes being wide and his mouth open to simulate a worried facial expression. Some players noted that the movie posters have been replaced with images of the swirly head man, which caused them to immediately turn their characters' heads away from the posters and approach the ticket taker. Then, another different, low-quality sound clip plays, but the speech box contains nothing but corrupted characters that cause whatever text that would have been there in the box to be completely illegible. Due to the extremely low quality of sound, it is debated by players what exactly the ticket taker says at this point, though it is widely agreed that it says, "Never reach the other levels." Then the screen fades out once again and returns the player back to the standing point in the lobby. But the ticket taker is gone, and the hallway is blocked by a large brick wall sprite. Touching the brick wall will immediately crash the game. And that's all there is to it. No one knows what the other levels are or how to gain access to them, nor is it known why Swirly Headman causes such acute fear in those who have seen him in the game. All the original copies of the theater have either been lost or destroyed, but the creepiest part is the fact that this is all the original players of the game claim to occasionally see a glimpse of the Swirly Headman out of the corner of their eyes. I'm what you would call a collector of bootleg Pokemon games. Pokemon Diamond and Jade, Chaos Black, etc. It's amazing the frequency with which you can find them at pawn shops, Goodwills, flea markets and such. They're genuinely fun games, even if they are unplayable, which they most often are. The mistranslations and poor quality is what makes them unintentionally humorous. I've been able to find most of the ones that I played online, but there's one that I haven't seen any mention of. I bought it at a flea market about 5 years ago. The game started with the familiar Nidorino and Gengar intros on the blue and red versions. However, the press start screen had been altered. Red was there, but the Pokemon did not cycle through. It also said Black version under the Pokemon logo. Upon entering new game, the game started the Professor Oak speech, and it quickly became evident that the game was essentially a Pokemon Red version. After selecting your starter, Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle, you would see another Pokemon with you. Ghost. The Pokemon was a level 1. It had the sprite of the ghost that you encounter in Lavender Tower before obtaining Sleuth Scope. It only had one attack, Curse. I know that there is a real move named Curse, but the attack did not exist in Gen 1, so it appeared to be hacked in. Defending Pokemon were unable to attack Ghost. It would only say that they were too scared to move. When the move Curse was used in battle, the screen would cut to black. This cry of the defending Pokemon could be heard, but it was distorted, played at a much lower pitch than normal. The battle screen would then reappear, and the defending Pokemon would be gone. If used in a battle against a trainer, when the Pokeballs representing their Pokemon would appear in the corner, they would have one fewer Pokeball. The implication was the Pokemon died. What's even stranger is that after defeating a trainer and seeing Red received $200 for winning, the battle command would appear again. If you selected Run, the battle would end as it normally does. You could also select Curse. If you did, upon returning to the overworld, the trainer's sprite would be gone. After leaving and re-entering the area, the spot where the trainer had been would be replaced by a tombstone like the ones at Lavender Tower. The move Curse was not usable in all instances. It would fail against ghost Pokemon. It would also fail if it was used against a trainer that you would have to face again, such as your rival or Giovanni. It was usable in your final battle against them, however. I figured this is the gimmick of the game, allowing you to use the previously uncapturable ghosts, and because Curse made the game so easy, I essentially used it throughout the entire adventure. The game changed quite a bit after defeating the Elite Four. Viewing the Hall of Fame, which consisted of ghosts and a couple of underleveled Pokemon, the screen cut to black. A box appeared with the words, "Many years later." It then cut to Lavender Tower. An old man was standing, looking at the tombstones. You then realized this man was your character. The man moved at only half of your normal walking speed. You no longer had any of the Pokemon with you, not even Ghost, who up until this point had been impossible to remove from your party through depositing in the PC. The overworld was entirely empty. There were no people at all. There were still the tombstones of the trainers that you had put Curse on, however. You could go pretty much anywhere in the overworld at this point, though your movement was limited by the fact that you had no Pokemon to use HMs. And regardless of where you went, the music of Lavender Town continued on an infinite loop. After wandering for a while, I found that if you could go to the Diglets Cave, one of the cuttable branches was normally blocked the path, and the other side was no longer there, allowing you to advance and return to Pallet Town. Upon entering your house and going to the exact tile where you start, the screen would cut to black. Then, a sprite of a Caterpie appeared. It was replaced by a Weedle, and then a Pidgey. I soon realized, as the Pokemon progressed from Rattata to Blastoise, that these are all of the Pokemon that you used Cursed on. After the end of my rival's team, a youngster appeared, and then a bug catcher. These were the trainers I had cursed. Throughout the sequence, the Lavender Town music was playing, and it was slowly decreasing in pitch. By the time your rival appeared on screen, it was a little more than demonic rumble. Another cut to black. A few moments later, the battle screen suddenly appeared. Your trainer sprite was now that of an old man, the same one as the one who teaches you how to catch Pokemon in Viridian City. Ghost appears on the other side, along with the words, "Ghost wants to fight." You couldn't use items, and you had no Pokemon. If you tried to run, you couldn't escape. The only option was fight. Using fight would immediately cause you to struggle, which didn't affect Ghost but did chip off a bit of your own HP. When it was Ghost's turn to attack, it would simply say, eventually, your HP reached a critical point. Ghost would finally use Curse. The screen cut to black a final time. Regardless of the buttons you pressed, you're permanently stuck on a black screen. At this point, the only thing you could do was to turn the Game Boy off. When you played again, New Game was the only option. The game had been erased. I played through this hacked game many times, and every time the game ended with this sequence. Several times, I didn't use Ghost at all, though he was impossible to remove from the party. In these cases, it did not show any Pokemon or trainers and simply cut to the cinematic of Battle with Ghost. I'm not sure what the motives were behind the creator of this hack. It was widely not distributed, so it was presumably not for monetary gain. It was very well done bootleg. It seems he was trying to convey a message, though it seems I am the sole receiver of this message. I'm not entirely sure what it was, the inevitability of death, the pointlessness of it all. Perhaps he was simply trying to morbidly inject death and darkness into a children's game. Regardless, this children's game has made me think, and it has made me cry. Thank you again for coming to the Scary Story Corner. I hope not everyone was too scared to go home. Be careful and stay safe. You never know what's lying in the night.